Hi, everybody, and I am delighted that in this session we have with us Stephen Tweed, who has been for many years for me absolute idol in the area, all areas of workforce and strategy in care in the US, and much more widely. His influence stretches far. So it's fantastic we've got Stephen with us, and we're going to, in this session with him, focus on some of the fundamentals of recruitment in the care sector. And Stephen advises many CEOs, care CEOs, and has done for many years. And so he is an absolute wealth of knowledge on this topic. So I'd like, Stephen, perhaps you could introduce yourself, and then we can dive in to looking at some of the threats and challenges and how we can overcome them as care providers.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Well, my name is Stephen Tweed, and I own a company in Louisville, Kentucky in the USA called Leading Home Care, a Tweed Jeffries company. And we work with home health agencies, hospices, and private pay home care companies across the US and Canada. We've also done a lot of work in skilled nursing facilities, assisted living facilities, independent living, and senior living. But the primary focus of our work the last decade has been in the in-home care sector.
Fantastic. And it's such a pleasure to talk to you at any time. And there's so much to talk about. But I think what we'd like to focus on in this session is looking at, from your experience of talking to CEOs of care businesses, you see the trends, and what do you feel at the moment is where you feel the real threat that they are facing? What would you say that is, and how are they articulating?
We actually have some great data, Neil, from a company in the US called Home Care Pulse that does an annual industry benchmarking survey. And we've been supporting that survey for this is the 9th year of the survey. And one of the questions they've asked the past 5 or 6 years is, what do you see as the biggest threat facing your home care business? And 79% of home care CEOs said the caregiver shortage is the biggest threat. And part of it is not enough caregivers, part of it is the rising turnover. And turnover has grown dramatically over the past 9 years, from like 39% 9 years ago. This past year, it was 66.7% annual turnover. And other data that comes up shows that about 80% of the turnover happens in the first 90 days. And I know that you've done some research in short-term turnover and 1 year retention rates. And so the turnover issue becomes a huge issue. So we labeled this the caregiver recruiting and retention crisis. And research on that is what led me to write the book, Conquering the Crisis.
And in fact, I have a copy, my own copy here. It's a fantastic read. So if anyone's out there is interested in this topic, which you should be if you are in either leading or recruiting or building a team in care, Stephen's book is fantastic. And I've really learned a lot from it myself. And when you're talking to these CEOs, obviously this issue of recruitment and retention is so kind of interconnected. So the fact that they're losing more staff means that it becomes harder and harder to recruit. But you think they feel there's a shortage as well. Actually, they're finding it harder to find good quality, or any caregivers, would you say?
Well, yes. And of course, as the economy goes up and down, the availability of a workforce fluctuates. And now in the US, we have the lowest unemployment rate we've had in 20 years. And so overall, not just in caring related businesses, but all across the workforce, employers are facing a shortage of caregivers. And so we're seeing that in the home care industry. Part of it is purely demographic. There are simply not enough physical bodies who are working in this profession to meet the growing needs of an aging population. So basically what we're saying to our clients and the members of our home care mastermind groups is, if you expect to grow your agency, it means that you need to be the best place to work and to attract high quality caregivers, basically from your competitors, from other employers, whether it be another home care company or another senior living company. Certainly we're trying to make healthcare and in-home care an attractive profession for people. So we're trying to attract people in from other work, whether it's the hospitality industry or the food service industry, or young people coming out of high school to choose healthcare as a profession. But in the shorter term, CEOs need to be thinking, how do I create the kind of organization where people want to come to me to work? And what we know is that the very best caregivers are already happily working for someone else. And so we need to figure out how to get their attention and show them an option that you can come to our organization to work.
Yeah, fantastic. So, I mean, when you look at the basics then, if I was a CEO of a care business, I mean, this applies around the world, of course, but I mean, in your case, in the US, what sorts of specific things could I be doing to really make it an attractive place for someone to work?
Well, we think it begins with creating the culture, what we call a culture of attraction and accomplishment. And culture is simply the way that we do things around here. And the culture of a company is influenced by 4 factors. Number 1 is the leadership style of the CEO. So this is very much a CEO solution to the strategic problem that caring organizations are going to face. The second factor that influences the culture are the core values that guide your decisions and your actions. And so to some extent, it's the core values of the CEO, but it's really the values that are embedded in the organization. The third is the behavior that we expect. What is it that we expect our caring folks to do or to be? And the fourth is the behavior that we permit. When we were in London last summer, you met my wife, Elizabeth, who is a nurse and is an executive coach and works with C-suite leaders in hospitals and schools of medicine. And in her leadership programs, Elizabeth says, the behavior you permit, you promote. And so in creating this culture, it is what is the expectation? And of course, in the caring professions, part of it is reliability. We want people to show up. And the other is the whole notion of continuity. Our clients want the same caregiver every day over and over and over again. And so we need to find employees who will show up, who will demonstrate caring and compassion, who generate a high level of client satisfaction in the work that they do.
No, that's fantastic. And it's so important. I think, you mentioned culture. The CEO has a real role to play in recruitment, but perhaps sometimes they don't realize. They'll say they'll leave it to the recruiter to do. But actually, the reputation of the company, I mean, we've found, I'm sure you find too, I mean, apart from importing people from overseas, broadly, most of your staff are coming from the very local community in which you serve, and therefore your reputation and word of mouth of what sort of company you are really travels.
That's right. It's what we call your employment brand. Much like on the marketing side, companies establish a brand. We need to establish a brand locally as a place to work.
That's fantastic. This is brilliant. And I know you're going to come back, Stephen, and join us in some of the other modules. So we're really looking forward to, because we should really talk about some of those points in a little bit more detail. But for now, there's been an excellent overview, and thank you so much. And I think if people want to get hold of you, we'll have the details on the screen. I mean, Stephen is a real authority and has been for many years in this area, and it's an absolute pleasure to talk to him. And I hope we get to talk some more shortly. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you, Neil.
Thanks.